The Shadow Leader of the House, Jessie Norman.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. Will the Leader give us the business of the House?
Leader of the House.
I shall. The business for the week commencing the 24th of March includes Monday the 24th of March, second reading of the Planning and Infrastructure Bill. Tuesday the 25th of March, if necessary, consideration of Lord's amendments, followed by consideration of Lord's amendments to the Non-Domestic Ratings, Multiplier and Private Schools Bill, followed by consideration of Lord's amendments to the Great British Energy Bill, followed by consideration of Lord's amendments to the Terrorism Protection of Premises Bill, followed by motion to approve the draft National Minimum Wage Amendment Regulations 2025. Wednesday the 26th of March, my Right Honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, will make her spring statement, followed by remaining stages of the Tobacco and Vapes Bill. Thursday the 27th of March, general debate on St Patrick's Day and Northern Irish affairs, followed by general debate on the 10th anniversary of the Modern Slavery Act 2015. The subjects of these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. Friday the 28th of March, private members' bills. The provisional business for the week commencing the 31st of March includes Monday the 31st of March, if necessary, consideration of Lord's amendments, followed by remaining stages of the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education, Transfer of Functions, etc. Bill, Lords. Tuesday the 1st of April, second reading of the Product Regulation and Meteorology Bill, Lords.
Shadow Leader of the House, Jessie Norman.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. I hope you and the House will excuse me if I start on a very personal note. Almost exactly 24 hours ago, my father, Torquil Norman, died at the age of 91. He was an extraordinary man who flew Sea Fires and Sea Furies during his national service in the Fleet Air Arm. He created Polly Pocket, a toy which brought unbelievable joy to millions of young people around the house and around the world. And he rebuilt the Roundhouse in Chalk Farm in London, not just as an incredible performing arts centre, but as a creative centre for young people and for them to find their way from whatever backgrounds into jobs. The reason I mention this now is because I think he stood for values which bear a wider consideration in this House and in our own lives. Values of positivity, values of creativity. He always said that the secret to success in the toy business was to have a mental age of 7 and an eye for detail. Madam Deputy Speaker, incredible energy, but also amazing resilience and focus on the long term. Turn up at the finishing line was one of his maxims, and even in his 80s, he was building and creating a new enterprise to develop flat pack trucks, if you can imagine such a thing, that could be developed and sold around the world at low cost in countries supporting businesses and people. I think, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think the whole House would perhaps agree with me that we need these values today, a time of difficulty and stagnation and international conflict. We need these values of creativity, of ambition, of drive, of respect for others, and above all, of capability, not just a focus on the head, but on the hand and the heart as well. And it's something I feel very strongly about. We're trying to build this new university in Hereford, a specialist technical engineering college, precisely to bring those kinds of different aspects of the human personality together in the service of better jobs and better possibilities. But I also think it raises a question for us as a House and as a Parliament, which is to encourage us all to ask the right questions and to support long-term solutions, even when those questions and those solutions may not be ones that we are ideologically or politically drawn to. We're in a world now where I think we all know welfare costs are rising higher than anyone could have wanted. Civil service effectiveness is perhaps not as great as we would like. Productivity in the NHS is not quite what we would all want, for whatever reasons that may be, over very long periods of time. And we need a rapid boost to our defence and security. I think those are crucial questions for us as a House that we will need to continue to develop and discuss over the next few years. But I want to ask the Leader, if I may, whether we and other members in this chamber who are members of the Modernisation Committee, whether we can't expand our thinking about these issues and perhaps try to push for more scope for cooperation between the parties on these long-term issues, for more perhaps consultation and debate of key legislation before it's brought to this House, and more ways to develop a closer engagement, personal engagement between members, so that we can build respect and cooperation across the House for the longer term. One of my father's maxims, you'll have discovered he has many, was that the secret to success is take a large bite and then chew it. I think we could do that more, perhaps as a House and perhaps as a country. Thank you very much indeed.
Response, I just want to put on the record my condolences and my love and prayers. I know the member and I shared some time together in a department, and he was a very top gentleman to work with, and his father would have been very proud. Leader of the House.
Well, can I thank the Shadow Leader for that tribute to his father, Torquil Norman, who I didn't know, but just in the short time that he's spoken about him today, sounds like a wonderful father to have. Someone who invented children's toys, but also sounds like somebody of great wisdom who gave him great advice. And I'm sure we can all in this House live by those values of positivity, creativity and resilience that he so fondly shared with us. And I give him and all his family my very best wishes, and I'm sure the very best wishes of this House as he comes to terms with that in the coming days. And I do also want to congratulate Newcastle United, if I may, Madam Deputy Speaker. I wouldn't normally, but they did win their first silverware in 70 years, and it's also great to see that the Tour de France in 2027 will start in Edinburgh and make its way through England and Wales too. And before I come on to a few of the questions that he raised, can I also, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm sure the whole House, as international events yet again dominate, I'm sure we all look with horror at the unfolding situation in Gaza in particular, with aid being withheld and the killing continuing. And as the Foreign Secretary is about to set out to the House shortly, we want to see an urgent resumption of the ceasefire and those long-term peace talks being secured and continuing. But in the spirit of his contribution this morning, can I absolutely put on record my thanks to him for the cross-party working that he and I do across this House, not just through the Modernisation Committee, but on the House of Commons Commission chaired by Mr Speaker, and many other boards that we have to sit in for many hours indeed. But he makes a really important point, and it's one of the reasons that I wanted to establish the Modernisation Committee, because I could have come into this position as Leader of the House and just laid down motions, which I do many days, but laid down, motions to change the rules of the House, and that's not how I want to work. I take very seriously my role as leader, and as leader I represent the whole House. I want to bring the whole House together. I want to hear from the smaller parties as well as cross-party, and I do believe that we work at our best in this place when we do work together cross-party on select committees, on issues that unite us, and I know many of those issues get raised in business questions many times with me regularly. So can I join with him in saying that I think we could definitely do more to tackle the big issues this country faces, whether that is our defence and security, whether that is welfare reform that's needed, whether that's the jobs of the future. We could all work, or social care indeed, which I may get raised with me again today, and long may that continue, and we should strive to do more of it. Thank you.
Mary Glindon.
Deputy Speaker, and I add my condolences to the Shadow Leader. And Polly Pocket's still going today. My granddaughter is now a Polly Pocket fan. My daughter still has all of hers. Will the Leader of the House join with me in congratulating North Tyneside Council, the Football Foundation, Rugby Football League and other key partners supporting the new multi-million-pound sports hub in Wallsend, which officially opened earlier this week and will serve as the headquarters for Northumberland FA and provide a clubhouse at long last for Wallsend Rugby Club. And does she agree with the view of the Football Foundation CEO that such facilities have a transformative impact on the physical and mental health and play an important role in bringing people together and strengthening local communities? And I thank her for her congratulations to our wonderful Newcastle United.
Well, absolutely join her again in congratulating Newcastle United, but also on the work that's being done in her constituency to create sports facilities and grassroots football and rugby and others. She's absolutely right. These are vital for our communities, but also our young people. That's why we're reviewing the school's curriculum. It's why we're putting more money into local government, and it's also why we're bringing in the Football Regulator Bill to ensure that grassroots football is protected across the country.
Democrat spokesperson Marie Goldman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I also extend my condolences and that of my party to the shadow leader on the passing of his father, who sounds like he was an amazing man who will be missed not just by the shadow leader but by many across the country. Yesterday, in response to a question about welfare reform from the Mother of the House, the Prime Minister highlighted the importance of getting young people into work. He said, and I quote, "I think that 1 in 8 young people not being in education or training is a moral issue." Madam Deputy Speaker, I couldn't agree more about the importance of education and training, but I would gently suggest that some of the government's own policies are fighting against this. Anglia Ruskin University, ARU, has a campus right in the heart of my Chelmsford constituency. Its relatively new medical school is doing fabulous work teaching the doctors and medical professionals of the future, members of the workforce that we desperately need in our NHS. And it's doing it in new ways too. When I visited ARU just a few weeks ago, I met with 3 of the 25 apprentices taking part in the only medical doctor apprenticeship of its kind in the country. This apprenticeship is aimed at getting young people from more disadvantaged backgrounds into medicine, and it's structured in such an innovative way that these apprentices will remain in their local area to complete their foundation training. This means they will have a familiar local support system around them as they progress. It's an excellent programme and exactly what we need to recruit, train and retain young medical professionals. But this is a level 7 apprenticeship, and the government is scrapping them. So as this is clearly a moral issue for the Prime Minister, will the Leader of the House ask the government to think again and to provide hope that brilliant programmes such as this can continue?
Well, can I thank her for that question and for also passing on her condolences to the Shadow Leader once again. She's absolutely right that getting young people into work is a priority for this government, but it's very important for this country that we do that as well. We really do need to reform the apprenticeship system, so there are more apprenticeships available for young people, and that's not the system we inherited. The system we inherited, the apprenticeship levy was underused, underspent, and apprenticeship starts were actually falling, and that's why we're creating Skills England and reforming the apprenticeship levy so that those young people that she talks about can get the help she needs. I'm sure she will recognise that actually, notwithstanding the case that she raised, the vast majority of level 7 apprenticeships were actually being used by those much later in their careers, those who already had degrees and who wanted management training, and that's why we've had to look at whether that is sustainable and right. However, she does raise a very important point about a scheme in the university, in her constituency. We do need to get more young people into medicine, especially those from disadvantaged backgrounds, and I will make sure that that particular offering is looked at and she gets a full reply about it.
Rachael Maskell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I also offer my condolences to the Shadow Leader and concur with what he said. We are better as a Parliament when we collaborate together. I want to raise an issue that has occurred in my constituency. We know trade union reps do a fantastic job in representing their colleagues, their communities and their profession. However, a rep within a school in York has been suspended for carrying out trade union activities on the back of us clearly raising employment rights. This is a grievous matter, and I ask the Leader of the House if she will raise it with Cabinet colleagues that our reps working in public services should not be suspended for simply raising concerns about issues such as funding across our education system. And I would ask that pressure be put on the Multi-Academy Trust, completely unaccountable, to reinstate this representative.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear of the case that she raises. She's absolutely right that our trade union representatives in our workplaces do a really important job to provide that link between the employer and the employees, to make sure that people have the standards and the rights that they're entitled to in work, and that they're working in healthy and safe environments as well. I'll certainly make sure that the case she raises gets looked into, and that's also why we're taking steps to make sure that academy chains are also held to account in the same way that local councils are.
Bench Business Committee Chair Blackman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In addition to the business that the leaders announced, I noticed she didn't announce whether we'd be receiving Thursday the 3rd of April as a date. If we are given that date, we will have a statement from the Housing, Communities and Local Government Select Committee on children in temporary accommodation, followed by debates on the impact of digital platforms on UK democracy, and a further debate on access to sport and PE in schools. And if we're offered the Tuesday, the last day before the recess, we will have a debate on the award of a posthumous VC to Blair Main, and I would advise the leader never to cross Jim Shannon. There will then follow a debate on matters to be raised before the adjournment. In addition, in Westminster Hall, next week, on Tuesday, there will be a debate on retrospective accountability of the construction industry, which is vitally important. On Thursday, a debate on prevention of drugs deaths, and a debate on the first anniversary of the Hughes report on valproate and pelvic mesh, which has been raised in this place many times at business questions. On Tuesday, the 1st, there will be a debate on eating disorder awareness, and on Thursday, the 3rd, a debate on waste incinerators, followed by a debate on government support for Thames Water. On Tuesday, the 8th of April, a debate on persecution of Christians just before the Easter recess. In addition, Madam Deputy Speaker, it would be much appreciated if we can be advised, of course, of the dates for the Estimates Day debates in May. And indeed, I've sent a letter. Unfortunately, House business seems to completely disrupt our meetings that we're due to have on potentially supplying opportunities for 90-minute debates, of general debates, when government business is likely to finish early. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, last week I hosted a meeting of Rotary International in this place on the eradication of polio across the world. We heard from Dr. Hamid Jafari from Amman, Gulshin Akil from Pakistan, and Aziz Memon from Pakistan, as well as Sir Dr. Emeka Offa from Nigeria. We have invested millions of pounds in trying to eradicate polio across the world. Unfortunately, the new International Development Minister was not able to attend because of short notice on the change of ministers. We understand that. We also know, of course, that there is a reduction in overseas aid, and I make no comment on that. However, what we do want to see is a statement from the International Development Minister on which programmes are going to be preserved and which ones will be cancelled. At the moment, there are only 2 countries in the world, Afghanistan and Pakistan, where the polio is still rife. And if we were to cut those programmes, the risk is that polio will rear its head again across the world, and all the money we've invested will be wasted. So could we have a statement next week on this particular important subject?
Yeah. Blackman, you're the last person I should be chiding over using members' names and not their constituencies in the chamber. Leader.
On said such member, obviously I would never cross the member for Strangford. Of course not. I set his praise of me or criticism of me are very important to me. He, as ever, outlines some really important debates that the Backbench Business Committee are facilitating, and of course, as ever, I will look very kindly on Thursday, the 3rd of April, and of course the Tuesday before the recess in the usual way. And I hope that our meetings can be rearranged very soon. But can I thank him for raising the issue of the eradication of polio, and for all the great leadership and work that he's done on this issue over many years. It's an issue close to my heart, as my mum had polio as a youngster, and she still suffers from the consequences of that even today. So we are a strong supporter of global efforts to eradicate polio. As he will know, the decisions around the future of the overseas development aid budget are subject to the spending review, but I will absolutely ensure that his very powerful and strong representation here today has been heard as part of those conversations.
Sonia Kumar.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My condolences to the shadow leaders and his family. Madam Deputy Speaker, as a physiotherapist prior to being elected to this place, I was delighted to welcome all 14 members of the allied health professionals for a roundtable in Parliament this week. And they account for about a third of the NHS entire workforce, and they work tirelessly to improve patient care. Fundamentally, they all agree that allied health professions are sidelined and their roles are often misunderstood. Therefore, would my right honourable friend agree with me that we should have a debate in Parliament on the importance of AHPs and the crucial work they do in the NHS?
Well, she raises a really important matter, and it's good to see that she's taking her experience from her previous job as a physiotherapist and providing that strong leadership here in the House on those issues. And she's absolutely right. You know, they provide a huge contribution to our NHS. Without physiotherapists and others, we would not be able to get people well and fit and healthy again, and to continue with their lives and their work. So I absolutely support her request for a debate.
Sir Iain Duncan Smith.
Speaker, my condolences to my right honourable friend. His comments and his eulogy to his father at this particular time bring into stark relief, I think, interestingly, the absence in too many families of positive male role models for many of those young boys growing up, and his eulogy draws that into stark concern, something we all have to be concerned about. Can I just ask the leader, we have a real problem at the moment in the UK because we haven't really debated the issue of the use of slave labour in products here in the UK. And there's a really interesting point, because in America right now, they are sanctioning companies who have failed to interrogate their own supply chains. Not knowing is not good enough, and many of those are actually in use here in the UK. 3 of these companies, Dongai Jai Solar Technology Company, that parent company is being used at the MOD. Hongwan Green Energy Company, sanctioned by the USA, is in use over here. Jiangsu make a solar technology also, and other companies like Jinko Solar and Canadian Solar are ever present, and they are all essentially guilty of the use of slave labour. Can I ask her if we can have a proper debate about how we can stop this, like the Americans have been doing for some time? Surely we now need to sanction companies that use slave labour to get cheap advantage.
Leader.
Well, as ever, he raises an issue that I know he's long campaigned on, and its implications for the UK. He's absolutely right to raise it. We should not tolerate slave labour being used in any of the products that are on sale in this country or being used in this country, and we need to do more to expose that and have transparency around that as well. I think it would make a very good topic for a debate, but I will certainly ensure that relevant ministers update this House on how we can ensure we've got the economic sort of security and transparency to make sure this doesn't happen.
Nick Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My condolences to the Shadow Leader of the House, Torkel Norman, also. He sounds absolutely great. Park Brynbach women have recently won the Welsh cross-country championships.
Yeah. I wanted that.
They beat the likes of Cardiff and Swansea running clubs to lift the trophy. Will the Leader of the House please join me in congratulating this small club from Tredegar in their achievement? They have made their fellow club members, including me, very proud.
Yeah. Leader.
Oh, well, I thought he might be inviting me on a cross-country run there, Madam Deputy Speaker, and the answer would have been a clear no. But anyway, I will absolutely join him in congratulating the cross-country team, of which he is a member from Tredegar, and congratulating them on winning the Welsh Championships.
Wera Hobhouse.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and may I add my condolences to the Shadow Leader of the House. I absolutely agree. At an age where young boys and men are lacking role models, the memory of his father is such a powerful example why dads matter. Madam Deputy Speaker, King Edward's School in Bath came third in a National Reading Champion quiz, and I'm sure the Leader of the House will join me in congratulating them on that wonderful achievement. But reading for pleasure is now at an all-time low. Can we have a debate in government time on how to improve reading proficiency for children of all ages?
Well, absolutely join her in congratulating King Edward's School. We actually discussed many of these issues last week, as it was World Book Day when we met here last week, and we all shared the powerful testimonies of reading, the importance of reading, the importance of access to school libraries, of book schemes, and all of the literacy work that goes into that, and absolutely support her call to make sure that reading for pleasure is absolutely central to our education.
Joe Morris.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Across my constituency in towns such as Corbridge, Ponteland, Prado, Holtwhistle and Hexham, people are very passionate about the environment and the natural world. So they'll have been disappointed to hear the Leader of the Opposition junk their party's environmental commitments. So does the Leader of the House agree with me that moderate Conservative candidates should do some soul-searching and tell the people of Northampton if they're prepared to put planet before party?
Leader.
Well, absolutely. I think we saw the Leader of the Opposition go to a whole other planet this week. Planet Zog, maybe, or I don't know, I'm sure there's lots of other versions of that. But he's absolutely right that tackling the issue of climate change is not just important for the future of our climate, which it is, but it is absolutely vital to providing the jobs of the future that we need in this country, to providing the energy security so it protects us from the likes of Putin's and the others in the future, and it also means that we'll have longer term, lower bills for all of our constituents, and that's why it was a completely mad thing of the Leader of the Opposition to do this week.
Sarah Bool.
Thank you, and I send my condolences to the Shadow Leader. His father sounded an incredible man, and I certainly loved playing with my Polly Pocket, so thank you for that lovely memory this morning. Madam Deputy Speaker, aplastic anemia is a life-threatening blood disorder which is rare but can affect hundreds across the country, but there is actually no information on it on the NHS England website, and sadly the constituent Mr Jenkins, who brought this to my attention, has passed away from the condition. But I did promise his wife that I would continue in his memory to raise aplastic anemia and ensure that it does get listed on the NHS website like it is now in NHS Inform in Scotland. So in light of NHS England being disbanded, can I just ask the Leader to perhaps raise with Cabinet colleagues how we can ensure rare conditions are recognised because they cause great distress and isolation, and I want to ensure this doesn't happen in the future.
Leader.
Well, I'm sorry to hear of her constituent passing from this rare condition, and congratulate her on bringing that to the floor of the House on behalf of his wife. Of course, she's absolutely right. These rare conditions, which get raised with me in business questions very often, often don't get the attention or the signposting that they desperately need. So I will, of course, ensure that she gets a full response about that.
Lee Ingham.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I also extend my condolences to the Shadow Leader. Your father sounds like a wonderful man. I recently visited Chase Recovery in my constituency, a community-based, peer-led rehabilitation programme designed for those who have experienced substance misuse and are seeking a new abstinence life filled with meaning and purpose. I met with Paul and Cara, and whilst there, and their passion for their work is inspiring and infectious. Would she join me in congratulating them for the work they do, and would the House hold a debate on the importance of the innovative community-based services when it comes to sustainable long-term recovery to substance misuse?
Yeah. Leader.
Well, I'll certainly join her in congratulating Paul and Cara and the work that they do on rehabilitation in her constituency, and she highlights once again the really important role of prevention, early intervention, rehabilitation to ensure that people are healthy and successful in life in whatever way that does, and often these services are delivered by some fantastic volunteers.
Sir Julian Lewis.
The Shadow Leader of the House referred to his admirable father's national service in the course of his tribute, and that took place during a Cold War which was prevented from turning into the Third World War by the presence of American forces in NATO, led by the Supreme Allied Commander Europe, who up to now has always been a senior US Army or other officer. Now reports are saying that in the Trump administration's latest move away from the security system that prevented a Third World War until the collapse of the Soviet Empire, America is proposing to give up the post of SACEUR and allow a European or presumably a Canadian prior to annexation to take it over. What is the government doing, may we have in a statement, to prevent such a dangerous and foolish outcome proceeding?
Leader.
Well, he's absolutely right to say that our strength and security in this country, in Europe and indeed across the world comes from our very strong alliances with Europe and with America through NATO, and our commitment to that is unwavering, and that has been an absolutely critical component to peace and security around the world over the recent years. I'm not going to provide, I'm sure he'll appreciate, a sort of running commentary on the Trump administration, but he will recognise that the Defence Secretary, the Foreign Secretary and indeed the Prime Minister have been incredibly forthcoming with updates and providing those details to this House, and I will ensure that they continue to do so.
Matt Weston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and my sincere condolences to the gentleman opposite. Hundreds of thousands of households across this country live on unadopted estates. They can be in that status for a great many years, up to 10 years as I'm hearing. And in my constituency of Warwick and Leamington, I have estates where there are certain streets that have been built, say, by Taylor Wimpey, where they're being just charged council tax, and other streets which may have been built by Persimmon, where they're being charged not just council tax, but also a monthly fee. Fortunately, my local Labour councillors are campaigning against companies like First Port because they see this as an absolute outright scam. Can I therefore urge the government either for a meeting with the Housing Minister or indeed for a debate, because I fear that this is being felt right across the country and it is an absolute scandal.
Leader.
Well, he's right. It is being felt right across the country. I think we've called this fleasehold, and we've called it fleasehold for a reason, Madam Deputy Speaker, and that's why we want to end these leasehold estates for good. We've already ended leasehold for new housing, and we'll be ending new leasehold for flats as well, and bringing forward the Common Whole White Paper, but also later this year the draft leasehold reform legislation. We look forward to working with him and his local councillors to end this leasehold for good.
Anne Davies.
Diolch yn fawr, Madam Dirprwy Llefarydd, and I can offer my condolences as well to the Deputy Leader. Plans to install electricity pylons across my constituency of Caerfyrddin are causing a huge concern to many of my constituents. But we have a Pencader-based cable ploughing company, ATP, which specialises in innovative spider plough technique, which has a low impact on the environment and has laid underground power lines all over Europe and including here in the UK. Will the Leader of the House join me in celebrating this local success story, which offers an efficient, ecologically and environmentally friendly and, more importantly, efficient way of addressing our energy infrastructure needs?
Well, she raises an important matter, and I know that the building of new pylons in many people's constituency is an issue of concern for local people. We do need the energy infrastructure that we need for the future, and that does include new pylons, but it's why we are bringing forward measures to ensure that those who live near new pylons will receive £2,500 off their energy bills in forthcoming years. But the example that she gives of an innovative approach for that cabling to be underground is certainly one I'm sure that the Secretary of State will be keen to look at.
Jazz Atwell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I too offer my condolences to the Shadow Leader. Women's rights have come a long way. Indeed, we've had 3 Prime Ministers, our first female Chancellor, female Leader of the House. However, many women and girls in the UK are still being denied the right to feel safe in their communities, on streets and in their homes, and even online. And whilst charities and governments continue to work tirelessly to combat sexual violence, indeed our government have made a landmark mission to halve violence against women and girls. For some constituents I have met recently, many agencies, including the police, still do not take sexual violence seriously, respect victim survivor testimonies, or take serious action to stop the harm. Would the Leader of the House provide time for a debate?
Order. We really do have to have shorter questions than this. Can the honourable gentleman get to his point, please?
Would the Leader of the House provide for a debate on the state agencies can work to protect victim survivors better? Thank you.
Leader.
Well, he's absolutely right that tackling violence against women and girls is a national emergency, and it's also why this government has a really ambitious mission to halve the levels of violence against women and girls within a decade, and that is going to take a huge effort. We've already taken a number of steps, such as banning sexually explicit deep fakes. We're taking action on stalking, spiking, and many other measures in the forthcoming bills, and I look forward to debating those with him.
David Mundell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and my condolences to the Shadow Leader. I spent many happy hours looking for lost Polly Pocket pieces. The Leader of the House has had many invitations to the Scottish borders, and I would extend an invitation to come to the Langham Common Riding, which is a fantastic event where the cornet leads a cavalcade of horses to check the town's boundaries. But if the Leader was to come to Langham right now, she would find that people are very unhappy about a proposed cull of feral goats on the moorland surrounding the town. A company called Oxygen Conservation took over a large part of that moor for the purpose of rewilding. But local people are dismayed that their first action was to propose this cull of goats. Now, whatever the merits or otherwise of such a scheme, I'm sure the Leader will agree with me that it's important that organisations like Oxygen consult with local people and don't just ride roughshod over their views.
Well, absolutely, and thank you very much. I thank him for the invitation to his constituency. I have had many in that region, and I hope to one day come good on them. But look, he raises, I think, what has become a very big issue in his local constituency. I understand there's a petition about this matter that's garnered much support as well, and he's absolutely right that in the interests of rewilding or nature preservation, these organisations really ought to work with local people to ensure that their wishes are well considered about it.
Rachael Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I hope the spring equinox has put a spring in your step this morning.
Anything to be called these days.
Every Saturday, people from all around Bedworth join for the weekly park run in the Miners' Welfare Park. After the run, the Mayor's Cafe in the park and the garden centre run by People in Action are often full, but the town centre remains relatively empty. Bedworth is receiving £20 million from the Plan for Neighbourhoods, and so I launched a survey to see what residents feel their town centre needs. Will the Leader of the House grant time in this House for a debate on support for businesses on our high streets and in our town centres?
Leader.
Yeah, well, I certainly don't feel like a spring chicken anymore, that's for sure, Madam Deputy Speaker. But I'm really pleased to hear that Bedworth is receiving £20 million from the government's Plan for Neighbourhoods. She's absolutely right. This is a really important scheme to make sure that our town centres, our village centres, can get the regeneration support they so desperately need.
Luke Taylor.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'd also add my condolences to the Shadow Leader of the House and his family, his father, from defending our country to improving the happiness of our children and then increasing our cultural awareness. It's an incredible life, and I'm sure he'd be proud of it. The government's new crime and policing bill promises significant reforms to policing in this country. However, it's concerning that no money motion was passed alongside the bill, especially when there's an urgent need to strengthen community policing to ensure the successful implementations of these reforms. Will the Minister commit to moving a money motion that specifically allocates funding for community policing?
It might be helpful if I pointed out that policing measures don't require a criminal justice measures don't require a money resolution, I've just been advised. by the clerk. I'm not sure if that's of assistance either to the member or to the Leader of the House. Luke Taylor, if you wanted to complete.
It seems you may have preempted the end of my question. I would very much appreciate clarification. Thank you.
I'm happy to answer it anyway, because I think he raises a really important matter. This is a big bill with lots of good, important measures in it. It's one of my favourite bills, not least because it will give the police the powers to seize quad bikes and off-road vehicles, which I know is very popular in these sessions as well, and many, many other popular measures. But he's absolutely right. Unless we've got the police officers on the street to actually operationalise these powers, then our constituents won't feel the benefit. And I can assure him that these are fully costed measures, and we are committed to 13,000 new neighbourhood police officers alongside it.
Clive Efford.
Mr. Speaker, I associate myself with all the words of condolences to the Deputy Leader of the House, despite all the hours I spent trying to find bits of Polly Pocket to placate my children. My honourable friend is aware that the Infected Blood Compensation Authority published its timetable last week for paying out compensation to the infected and the affected. And following that, Sir Brian Langstaff, Chair of the Infected Blood Inquiry, made it known that he intended to write a further report in response to complaints he's received from the victims about the timetable and the compensation process and the adequacy of the government's response. So can my right honourable friend update us on where we are regarding the promised debate on infected blood on the floor of this House?
Leader.
Well, can I thank him for raising this? And I know this is an issue that he has campaigned on for a long time. And I'm sure he can recognise that, certainly in recent years, this has been too slow for many of those affected and infected by this terrible scandal. That's why we moved at pace after the general election, when we first came into office, to establish the Infected Blood Compensation Authority, and funds are now going to the infected, and the statutory instrument to take that forward as well is being considered on Monday upstairs. We've had 2 debates so far since the election and 3 statements to this House, but I will, as ever, ensure that the Minister is totally forthcoming to this House and that we have plenty of opportunity to debate these important matters.
Sir Gavin Williamson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Just a short while ago, I met with the Brood and Codsall Dementia Support Group in my constituency, and they raised the issue of the increasing number of people being diagnosed with early onset dementia and the difficulties in terms of supporting those people. I wonder if we could have a debate or a statement from in government time to actually see how we can support those with early onset dementia, including earlier access to pensions, because of course their life expectancy is so much more shortened.
Catherine Atkinson.
Well, he raises a good point, which dementia does get raised with me a lot in business questions, and I know in health questions as well. We are committed to early diagnosis and to getting those diagnosis rates up, but he raises a particular issue about access to pensions, which I think is one that does require further consideration, and I will certainly raise that with the Secretary of State for Pensions.
Catherine Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Being deaf should not be a barrier to sport, and I am so pleased that Marcy White, a constituent of Derby North, has been selected to be part of GB's deaf women's football team competing in the Deaf Olympics in Tokyo later this year. Marcy has to fundraise to cover the costs of her expenses, but will the leader join me in wishing the GB team good luck, and may we have a government statement on how we can encourage participation and sponsorship for deaf sports both at grassroots and at elite level?
Leader.
Well, she's taken the opportunity today to raise some really important attention to this issue, and can I join her in congratulating but also wishing well Marcy White, I think she said, for making it onto the GB Deaf Women's Football team, and I hope that in raising it today the team maybe gets some extra sponsorship and extra support, which it so deserves.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituents in Boston and Skegness will be concerned by reports in the media this morning about a government report that shows that the costs of net zero will impact negatively on GDP by 2030 by some 10%, will increase national debt, increase the risk of a financial crisis, and will hit the poorest the hardest. Given that this report was suppressed from the Department of Business and Trade by the previous government, and given this government's enthusiasm for transparency, will the Leader of the House confirm that this report will now be released to the public to enhance a debate on this issue?
Leader.
Well, first of all, can I congratulate the gentleman? I think he's got a new role as chief advisor to the Leader of the Opposition, because they seem to be on the same page this week. But like her, I'm afraid he's wrong on this issue, because we cannot ignore net zero. It's not just important for the climate, but it's absolutely critical to lowering jobs. Lowering bills, creating jobs, creating the energy security that we need, and not taking action on net zero will actually cost us a lot more in the long run than taking the steps that we are to invest in the jobs and the lower bills of the future.
Adam Jogi.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I extend my condolences to the Shadow Leader of the House. I think it says a lot about him that he's here in his place doing his duty today. Last month, the Mayor of the ancient and loyal borough of Newcastle and Lyme, Councillor Barry Panter, tragically died in a traffic accident. And although from different political traditions, he and I got on well, and he was always very kind to me indeed. Now, last night, members of the Borough Council met to pay tribute to Barry. Sadly, it appears that the Chair didn't have enough time to read my tribute out. So with that in mind, can I ask the Leader of the House if she will agree with me and my honourable friends from Stafford and Stoke-on-Trent North in mourning his loss, extending our collective condolences to Barry's wife Beatrice on behalf of His Majesty's Government, and give thanks for his noble service in our armed forces, in the South Wales Police Force, and to our community in Newcastle under Lyme.
Leader.
Well, I absolutely join him in passing on the condolences of the government to Barry Panter and to all of the contribution he's made to public life, both as a former police officer and a dedicated public servant, and he's served his constituents very well today.
Andrew Rossendale.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I also offer my condolences to the Shadow Leader of the House on the loss of his father, who sounds like a very fine gentleman indeed.
Yeah.
So, the Leader of the House will, I'm sure, welcome the visit this week of the new Canadian Prime Minister to the United Kingdom, Mark Carney. Of course, Canada is a great friend to the United Kingdom, and the new Prime Minister is very welcome. However, the Leader of the House must surely see that the UK economy is suffering from growth flattening, inflation above target and unemployment on the up. All this, Madam Deputy Speaker, as a result of the economic model adopted by the Chancellor, which was endorsed by the former Bank of England Governor, who was one of her advisers before the election, no less. So, will the Leader of the House agree to a debate to discuss how printing money, raising taxes and adding more costs to businesses has driven up prices and damaged jobs? And will she accept that former Bank of England economists and governors seem to have little clue about how the economy actually works, which is bad for Britain and bad for Canada?
Leader.
Well, I would gently remind the honourable gentleman, and he knows what's coming because he's grimacing already, that under his government we saw inflation go to 11%, we saw the economy crashing, taxes raised to their highest in 70 years, debt out of control under his government. We have had to come along and put the economy back on a stable footing, and that has meant taking difficult decisions, but we need to invest in our public services and we need to put the economy back on a stable footing, and I'm afraid we won't be taking lectures from the party opposite about that.
Lee Pitcher.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and may I pass on my condolences as well to the Shadow Leader, whose father sounds like a modern-day Father Christmas. As a child, my mother, sister and I experienced a period of homelessness. It was an incredibly difficult time for all of us, but thanks to the kindness of family and friends, we had a support network to get us through it. Sadly, this is not the case for everybody. So this Friday, I'll be joining residents from across my constituency at Doncaster Rovers Football Club for the Snooze in the South stand event, an initiative that will give participants a powerful insight into the daily reality faced by too many people fighting homelessness in our communities. Will the leader of the House join me in praising those organising and taking part in this important event and recognise the steps that the government are taking to reducing and eventually getting rid of homelessness altogether?
Leader.
Well, absolutely. Can I thank him for using his own experiences to highlight the important issues that homelessness raises, and join him in wishing himself and all of those others taking part in the Snooze in the South stand event forthcoming, as he says. He's right. We've got to tackle the root causes of homelessness. We put more money into tackling homelessness. We are ending no-fault evictions, and we are absolutely committed to one of the biggest house building programmes, including in social and affordable housing, that this country's ever seen.
Afra Brandreth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and may I add my condolences to the Shadow Leader of the House. As of today, whilst ultra-fast broadband is available in Chester, only 19% of premises currently have access. Villages in my constituency of Chester South and Eddisbury, which are within just a few miles of Chester city centre, villages including Waverton, Littleton, Christleton and Rowton, have an average download speed of just 10 megabytes per second, against the UK average of 69.4 megabytes per second. These villages did not qualify for Project Gigabit as they were classed as urban rather than rural, despite them being in the countryside. They are also outside of the boundaries of the city of Chester, so are not included in urban-focused projects. Would the Leader of the House consider giving opportunity for this issue to be properly addressed in the House in the form of a debate on broadband speeds in rural areas?
Leader.
Well, she's absolutely right that access to fast broadband, full fibre, gigabit broadband, the rollout has been too slow, especially in rural areas like those in her constituency that look like they're between urban and rural indeed. This government is committed to that rollout by 2030, but I'll absolutely ensure she gets an update on what's happening in her constituency.
Paul Wall.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and may I pass on my own personal condolences to the Shadow Leader. He and I have known each other ever since he entered this House, and he made a fitting and moving tribute to his late father just now. Madam Deputy Speaker, every family in Rochdale, including mine, has a relative or a friend who's benefited from the superb end-of-life care provided by Spring Hill Hospice. So can I pass on the hospice's thanks to the government for providing £111,000 in new funding just this month as part of a £100 million investment in hospices across the country? And will she join me in congratulating Greater Manchester Hospice Provider Collaborative, which visited Parliament this week just to show the NHS just how much innovation and expertise they can provide the palliative care movement?
Well, absolutely. I was sorry I couldn't join him and other Greater Manchester colleagues when they did the event with the Greater Manchester Hospice Provider Collaboration earlier this week. I saw the photos and fully support his work, and I take this opportunity to thank Spring Hill Hospice in Rochdale, and I'm really pleased to hear that they've got £111,000 of extra investment thanks to this government, and I hope they will continue to flourish.
Clive Jones.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I also express my sympathy to the Shadow Leader of the House? I knew Torquil, his father, very well for many years, working in the toy industry as a competitor and working with him on many charities. He created some fantastic toys, not just Polly Pocket, but the big yellow teapot, the a la carte kitchen, and the big red fun bus. All of those he created when he started a very, very successful public company called Bluebird Toys. He brought fun to millions of children across the world, and in doing so, he had the most wonderful of lives. And the Right Honourable Member and his family will have much to celebrate in the coming weeks and months, remembering Torquil Norman. I and many others associated with the toy industry will be very sad to hear this news today. Madam Deputy Speaker, for months one of my constituents in Wokingham tries every morning at 6 a.m. to book a driving test, but are left waiting online queues for half an hour with the DVS system, suspecting they are a bot. Actual bots somehow get through buying up test slots and selling them off at a premium. My constituent does everything right, but the system doesn't work for them. Can we have a debate in government time on how to address the frustrating shortages of driving tests?
Leader.
Well, can I first of all thank him? I'm sure if the shadow leader were able to respond to his question, he would want to respond to thank him dearly for for painting another picture, a lovely picture of the shadow leader's father, Torquil Norman. I didn't realise it was Bluebird toys and all of those other toys that involves. So I think all of us owe him a great debt for inventing such fantastic toys for the rest of us. And he raises a really important issue about the DVSA, for which we get many complaints. It is taking people too long to get driving tests. People are waiting too long to get their slots. I know that there are other colleagues who have raised that with me in the past and will, I think, are going to raise it with me today as well. So perhaps they might club together and get a backbench business debate on this important matter.
Catherine Fuchs. Madam Deputy Speaker. I was extremely relieved to see my constituent, Rebecca Burke, safely return to her family in Monmouthshire after her ordeal in America on Tuesday. I'm sure all of us across this House would like to wish her well after her detention at the border for 21 days due to a mix-up with her visa. Whilst I'm delighted she's home, I was really disappointed and actually quite shocked to hear that she was transported to the airport in the USA in chains, despite doing absolutely nothing wrong and posing no risk. The family want me to convey my thanks to all those at the Foreign Office and at the Consulate who helped bring this awful ordeal to a close. But Leader of the House, will you support me in securing a meeting between the Burke family and the Foreign Secretary so they can feed back their difficult experience with US immigration and customs enforcement to the Foreign Office so lessons can be learnt?
Leader.
Well, I am pleased to hear that her constituent, Rebecca Burke, has now safely returned home, and I'm very sorry to hear of the experience that she suffered in the US, but I'm glad that the Foreign Office was able to help in that time. The Foreign Secretary was in his place for the early part of her question, but if he didn't hear all of it, I will absolutely ensure that she gets a meeting with the appropriate minister.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I join with others in sending my deepest sympathy to the Shadow Leader on his loss. Madam Deputy Speaker, I recently attended the awards for the Grimsby and Cleethorpes Scout Group, and the member for Grimsby and Cleethorpes and I were glad to give up our Sunday afternoon to attend the event. And when you go to these events, you realise not how valuable it is for the young people concerned, but how important it is for that people give up, the adults and the Scout leaders give up their time to help develop the young people. Now, I know if I ask the leader for a debate in government time, she'll suggest I go to the Backbench Business Committee, but as a member of that committee, I'm aware how heavy the demands are. So I join the chairman in saying, could the leader give the Backbench Committee more time so that I won't have to wait too long for my Scout debate?
Well, can I join him in thanking the work of the Scouts that they do, but also all the adults that support the work of the Scouts, because it's absolutely vital for our young people, and thank him for making time on his weekend to go and support their work as well. And as ever, I hear the strong representations of the Backbench Business Committee. I think the Chairman and I are due to meet again soon to discuss other, perhaps more creative ways that we can find further slots as well.
We are expecting an important statement at midday, so if members keep their questions short and the leader also provides snappy answers, we might get everybody in. Tom Rutland.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Like 1% of the population, I suffer from celiac disease, an autoimmune disease that sees the gut attack itself if you eat gluten. There's no treatment other than a gluten-free diet, and the cheapest loaf of gluten-free bread can cost 6 times the amount of one that contains gluten. And despite this, prescriptions for gluten-free bread are being restricted across England by integrated care boards, leading to celiacs facing economic hardship and putting themselves at risk of cancer and osteoporosis. This must be reversed. Will the Leader of the House grant a debate in government time on the availability of gluten-free prescriptions across England?
Leader.
Well, he's made a very strong case today. I didn't realise gluten-free products were as expensive as he says they are, and he's right to point out that they are necessary for those celiac sufferers like him, and I'm sure this would make a very good topic for debate.
Tessa Munt.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I recognise your request for brevity, but nonetheless I'd like to offer my condolences and actually to say how much I identify with the maxim which was turn up at the finishing line, having stood 8 times to get here, but been successful twice. Given that countless families in my part of Somerset have adopted and are special guardians to children and young people, many of whom live with significant challenges and trauma stemming from their treatment in early life, the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund is a lifeline for the provision of essential therapeutic support. Whilst I've written to the Minister, and I understand that applications for therapy that started in this financial year can carry on into the next financial year, there's no news yet on the future of the fund beyond that, leaving many families in limbo. Can we have a debate to enlighten us as to when the government will make an announcement on this fund and how it proposes to support adoptive families to ensure they can access therapeutic support when it is needed?
Well, adoption support is really important, and this fund and the uncertainty about this fund is something that's been raised with me as a constituency MP as well, so I'm very well aware of it. So I will ensure that when I get a response about it, I pass that on to her as well.
David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I start by extending my deepest condolences. The Shadow Leader's father was clearly a remarkable man. Stoke-on-Trent has a rich history reflected through the architecture found across our 6 proud towns. As part of English Tourism Week, I was delighted to welcome colleagues from the National Lottery Heritage Fund to our mother town of Burslem, where we discussed how we could unleash the potential of our beautiful buildings if given the right support. We must safeguard our heritage buildings, so will the Leader of the House make time for a debate on the regeneration of our towns and how the government can support them?
Leader.
Well, I'm really pleased to hear of the work that's happening in Stoke-on-Trent around restoration of heritage buildings and the work he's doing with the National Lottery Heritage Fund, because it's absolutely vital that industrial heritage is also considered heritage in this regard, and I'll absolutely support him in raising these matters on the House.
Ashley Fox.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The M5 motorway in Somerset is being closed ever more frequently and for longer durations. This causes great inconveniences to businesses and residents, occasionally gridlocking the town of Bridgewater. So can we have a debate in government time on the policy of national highways in when and for how long it closes our motorways?
Leader.
Well, I know absolutely how frustrating these kind of road closures can be on constituents and others travelling as well, and poorly planned roadworks and highway agency plans can be very devastating. So I will support him in getting these issues raised with ministers and hopefully in the House as well.
Olivia Bailey.
Deputy Speaker. I recently visited the fantastic Tilehurst Junior Youth Club in my constituency and even enjoyed a stint running the tuck shop. It's so important that young people across our country have access to a safe place to play and socialise outside of school. So will the Leader of the House arrange for a debate on this government's plans for Young Futures hubs and improvements for services for young people?
Leader.
Well, she's absolutely right. We are committed to the Young Futures programme, which is progressing well, as she will know. I will ensure that the House is kept up to date on it as things progress, and that gives her a chance to once again praise the fantastic work of the Youth Club in her constituency.
Rupert Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Sincere condolences to the Shadow Leader of the House on the loss of his father. Mass deportations of illegal migrants and foreign criminals must be our ultimate policy objective. Is it going to be logistically straightforward? Absolutely not. Is it necessary? Absolutely yes. It's mass deportations or a mass amnesty. I choose deportations. Will the Leader of the House commit to a debate in government time on how we can deport the numbers required on a rapid timescale that is acceptable to the British people who reasonably expect our borders to be policed and the law upheld?
Well, I would gently say to the honourable gentleman that these matters are not as simple as he might suggest. This government is absolutely committed to protecting our borders. In fact, we have returned more people, illegal migrants, than has happened in recent years, and those numbers are going up and up. We've introduced the Border Security Command, which is already taking action at source, and we need to work internationally to make sure that people don't want to come here in the first place illegally. But we've got to take a range of actions, and presenting some kind of false, easy solution, I don't think does the issue any good at all.
Jane Kirkham.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Access to justice is a real issue in places like Cornwall, which is in effect a legal aid desert. When I first came to Cornwall in my previous life, I ran an employment law clinic at Citizens Advice in Falmouth. Citizens Advice do great work, but they struggle with funding and have recently had to drop their drop-in surgeries. Cornwall needs a law centre. Many urban areas have them, and I have willing volunteers. Could the Deputy Leader please, could the Leader please ask the appropriate Justice Minister to meet with me to discuss the routes to this and finding the funding?
Leader.
Well, absolutely, I will arrange a meeting for her, because she's absolutely right that access to justice and having the availability of these law centres, which I'm lucky enough to have in my own constituency, is vital to make sure that people have the justice they deserve.
Robbie Moore.
Madam Deputy Speaker, following Santander's disappointing decision to turn its back on Ilkley and close its bank branch, Link have now recommended that we have a full banking hub for our town, something which I've campaigned long for, and this is, of course, is welcome news. But it should never have taken for the last bank to close before we can have one. Meanwhile, in Keighley, we've had bank branch after bank branch close, but there is no sight of us getting a banking hub. So will the Leader of the House grant time for a government debate on getting banking branch hubs to be able to open and not wait for the last bank branch to close, and make sure that those services can be accessible and that can have full cash access available within them?
Leader.
Well, he will know that in recent years, long before we were in government, we've seen a huge acceleration in the closure of banks on our high streets because of changing practices, but also because of decisions of the banks. But this government is committed to bringing in 350 banking hubs. We've got 200 now already allocated and over 100 already open. And I will absolutely ensure that he gets an update on the banking hub for his constituency.
Laura Kirksmith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Potholes have plagued motorists for too long in Buckinghamshire, damaging cars and making drivers, pedestrians and cyclists less safe. I welcome the government's commitment to deliver more than 20 million in funding to Bucks Council to fix those potholes, and I'm working hard to get our councillors elected on the 1st of May to ensure that that investment delivers results. Can my right honourable friend reaffirm this government's commitment to our road infrastructure and ensure this keeps getting priority in Parliament?
Filling our potholes is a really important action that this government is taking, and that's why we've set aside an extra 7 million. We want to fill another 7 million potholes over the course of this Parliament, and I'm really pleased to see that she's working with her council and councillors she's hoping to get elected later this year to get the potholes fixed in her constituency.
Steph Aquarone.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I really valued the comments of the Shadow Leader of the House and of my colleague, and I'd like to offer, as well as my condolences, my time on a separate occasion to discuss with him his ideas about the future that he set out. Meanwhile, BT, Madam Deputy Speaker, have threatened to close down the K6 telephone box in Sharrington in my constituency, the vital lifeline for an area with poor mobile signal. Just a few weeks ago, an ambulance driver used this phone box to make an emergency call, and last Friday we rallied 50 locals to queue outside the phone box to make calls and prove its importance to BT. Will the Leader of the House arrange a debate in government time about the importance of phone boxes on rural communities and about the protection of vital rural services as a whole?
Well, look, I know that the provision of phone boxes still remains a really important one for many of our villages and towns across the country. And like in his constituency, he's taken his opportunity this morning to raise the phone box in his constituency, and I will ensure he gets a good reply about that.
Colin Naismith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Many of my constituents, particularly in the parish of Williston and the town of Nantwich, have been in touch about significant delays in receiving mail from Royal Mail, often going weeks without receiving a single piece of mail before receiving a whole stack of letters weeks later. And I'm sure my right honourable friend can appreciate this is resulting in my constituents missing important correspondence, including hospital appointments. So can my right honourable friend confirm when we might have a debate on Royal Mail performance?
Hear, hear.
Well, I can absolutely identify with what he describes, because I've had many similar issues in my own constituency, and I know that there are some systemic problems in Royal Mail around staff morale and some of the systems that they use, which means that people just aren't getting the service that they can rely on. I would advise that he raises these directly with Royal Mail, and perhaps like I did on behalf of my constituents, I raise them with the chair of the Business and Trade Select Committee, who hold regular accountability hearings with them.
Jim Shannon.
Deputy Speaker, can I, on behalf of my party, offer my condolences to the shadow leader of the House as well, on the loss of his dad. My dad died 10 years ago, and there's not a day I don't think of it. I'm sure the honourable member will be the same. The Chinese Communist Party's long-term strategy for Tibet through to 2049 involves tightened rules for religion to deliberately suppress Tibetan Buddhism and religious identity by bringing religion under total control of the state to ensure that religious views and feelings are supplanted by loyalty to Chinese cultural nationalism.
That's right.
Will the Leader of the House ask the Secretary of State for the Foreign and Commonwealth Department Office to commit to raising with their counterparts in China the urgent need for additional protections to safeguard human rights to freedom of religion or belief, and that these concerns will remain central to its diplomatic engagements with China? Thank you so much.
Very good question.
Well, they absolutely do remain central to our diplomatic relations, and the Foreign Secretary and the Minister are here in their seat now and will have heard his question, and we do stand firm on human rights, and we make that very clear in our discussions with China and with anybody else.
So we do have a very important statement coming in just 1 minute. Final question, Chris Webb.
The Blackpool Pleasure Beach in my constituency was named the best seaside park at the UK Theme Park Awards. It's world-class attractions like the Pleasure Beach that bring the estimated 23 million people to Blackpool last year. Will the Leader of the House join me in praising the Pleasure Beach and all attractions in Blackpool and encourage everyone to have a staycation this year in the UK?
Well, absolutely can encourage everyone to go to Blackpool, have fish and chips on the promenade, perhaps go on the big one, which I'm too scared to go on, and I look forward to joining the honourable gentleman there soon.
Can I thank the Leader of the House for her responses